Hey everybody, good morning. Today I've got a Sansevieria Cleopatra, one of my favorite Sansevierias. The colors, the striping, they're so pretty. But Sansevierias are clustering type of plants. So you can see I've got a whole bunch of little Cleos here that have got lots of pups in them. And so what we have to do is we have to separate them out. And the trick to these is you have to have a part of the rhizome with it. The rhizome is a really thick, almost potato. No, it's not a potato. Anyhow, it looks like a really, really thick root. As long as you have part of that on a leaf, you can grow it. Sansevierias can be propagated just by putting a leaf into either water or soil. But the problem is, and you're okay with Cleopatras, but the problem is you have a lot of hybrids and offshoots that they've created where you put in a leaf, you're going to get the plant, it's going to revert back to the plant that it was brought from. I'm trying to think what the terminology is. So let's see what we got to do with this. So usually they're very root bound. This is one that got put in a ceramic pot, not entirely sure why. But we're going to go ahead and try to bring them out without too much trauma to the roots. The problem that I have found with a lot of these ceramic plants too, the roots tend to kind of stick to the sides. So right now, all this, let me show you. Actually, I need a bigger pot so I can dump dirt into. Always a good thing to have all different sizes. You can see I've got all different size grow pots here because I'm not entirely sure how big that root is going to be on that plant. So all I'm doing right now, you can't really see though, can you? How about that? I am just trying to gently take off as much soil as I can to get down to the roots of the rhizome. And you also want to try to make sure you don't get a whole bunch of dirt up inside the new growth because that'll pack in there. And if that gets wet, it can end up, you can have crown rot and you'll just lose your whole plant. So, when you order Sansevierias through the mail, this is typically what you're going to get because most plants are shipped what's called dry root. So this is what happens. We take all the soil off. You can see we've got some good roots, got some coconut that's it's grown right into. That's why we use that chunky stuff. The original plant is this little tiny one. See how big the babies are? So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this guy probably right here at this node so it's got a nice chunk of rhizome with it. This other one, we'll cut her right off. There's enough rhizome on there. And then the original plant, which is this little tiny Cleopatra, we'll just start putting out more pups again, okay? So, you want to make sure that you have something sharp. So all I'm going to do is go right on in there and cut, okay? Typically what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to let this sit out for about a good 24 hours and let it callus on there so that you don't get moisture into the rhizome and end up rotting your plant out. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Same thing on here. I'm going to get her as close as I can to there. So you see it leaves a pretty big opening on both the mother plant and that one. But see the difference in how that one only has one root? We're going to put some root tone with her though, and we're going to encourage her roots to grow, okay? So I'm just going to set these here for a minute. Look how big that baby is. I'm easily impressed, what can I say? So, my other little trick up my sleeve that I use is, everyone, oh goodness, helps if it's closed before you shake it, Colleen. Everyone has this in their kitchen, ground cinnamon. What the heck is ground cinnamon doing in a greenhouse? I'll show you. What I will do is just put a little bit in my hand. And this is when you don't have time to sit there and wait a couple of days or 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it is for that root to callus. All I'm going to do, put that right on the bottom. What that does is it dries it out. When it dries it out, the water can't get in there and it won't rot. The only thing you don't want to do is get it all over the roots because it'll dry your roots out. Same concept. So I'm going to do this on each one of these. I don't want to pour it on there because if I pour it on there and I get it all over the roots, I'm going to be in trouble. So I'm going to take a little bit with my fingers and just kind of rub it on there. Okay? Now remember, this one has two cuts, so I have to do the bottom of her too. The bottom is enough that I can just do this again. See? blow it off. Last but not least, our great big guy. And he looks like I ought to be able to just do this. Okay? Now we're ready to go. What am I going to do with that? That's what you do with it. Certainly not going to put it back in the kitchen, right? Oh, wouldn't hubby be a little surprised if he's over there having his cinnamon toast and he gets a chunk of cocoa noir in it. Okay, so these guys, I'm thinking are going to fit perfectly good right here in this little pot, okay? Same thing with the little tiny mama. I want her to get nice and kind of root bound again. Bigger guy. I'm not using that ceramic pot again. Forget that. I think a 6 inch is too big. Let me see what else I got handy. Perfect. I've got one of these. So that's big enough. Because you want something that's big enough and wide enough it's going to support your base, especially when you have a great big tall plant, okay? So again, the soil we use, yummy, is the cactus and succulent soil. When we change and we start buying bulk, we'll let you know what we're doing. But what I always do is I add the cocoa noir to it. So that's this lovely ground up coconut. I mix it all up in the soil. It's going to be mixed up. You don't mix it up in the pot. I just did that because I was showing you. And we add lots of perlite. See all that white stuff? That keeps the soil from getting packed because we want this to drain. When you've got Sansevierias, you have to think about them. They're typically more of a succulent, but people like to treat them more of like a cactus. Regardless, you want them to stay dry. So you don't want that soil to get packed and staying wet all the time because that'll just rot your plants out. So again, can you see what I'm doing down there? All I'm doing is I'm packing the soil down. I want it packed so there's not a whole lot of air pockets and stuff in there because I want the water to flow through it. And it kind of does with capillary action. So I've made myself a nice hole in there. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle in my rooting powder. I used to always call it root tone. Just going to sprinkle a little bit in there. Okay. It's getting windy outside. Stuff's blowing around. I'm going to get her in there and get her roots all nice wrapped around in there. Kind of get her centered and then cave in this side. Okay. Got soil sitting right here ready. Oops, don't want that root. And I got a little bit of soil on that root and that crown. Don't want that to happen. So what I typically do, pretty much everyone has some of these laying around. I'll go through and just kind of knock it out. You could be a brainiac like I am and try to blow it out and end up with all the dirt in your face, which I've done that more than once. Okay, she's good to go. We're going to put her in a nice sunny place and let her grow and become beautiful. This is going to be a gorgeous plant and it's just huge. So that's one down. We got Mama here. Look at how long that is. So again, you can imagine that you've got to fill your soil up, but you need a place for her, for that big old rhizome that's coming down. So again, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of make myself a hole in there, pack it to the sides, and also pack the bottom, get all her roots in there, get her kind of centered. Oh, she's sticking up a little bit, so I'm going to have to poke her down in the soil. Push those sides in, and then come back with the rest of your soil. They have really stiff leaves, so it's not so easy to just pull the leaf up out of the way so you can get the soil in there. Okay, Mama is looking good. And usually what I do after I've done this, see all the soil right there in that crown? Can't resist blowing. And I still end up with stuff in my face. Okay, gonna let her be. And this last little baby. And you notice with that one, because she was a very established plant, and had some fairly good roots, I did not use the root tone or the root hormone on her. This little guy absolutely will get the rooting hormone. Okay, because there's only one little root on there. And before we encourage leaf growth, we want to encourage the root to grow, okay? Because that's going to make your plant healthy. So really pack it in there. Making that nice hole. Let's get our rooting powder. Some people will just take the plant and dip it right into the rooting powder and then put it in, and I do that as well. Wrap that one root she's got round and around in there. Push the sides in. Get us some extra soil. Trying to cover the crown this time so I don't have to try and get the soil out. Oh, and I still got it in there. I've been doing this forever, so don't feel bad if you make mistakes, okay? Mistakes aren't mistakes. They're moments for learning. And maybe one day I will be able to come up with some genius method of planting plants and not having soil getting in the ground. Then it'll be a gazillionaire. So I keep these around. Alright, our babies are done. Gonna move all that stuff over. What I'm gonna do, all my babies get this. A little bit of Super Thrive. Just enough to give them a little spritz. Stack the deck in your favor. It's not fertilizer. It is a vitamin, and it kind of just helps boost them and helps them draw up all the vitamins and stuff that they do have in the soil. So these 3 babies are going to go, I got to get labels in them. I know they're Cleos, but somebody else may not. And then they're going to get put in a nice little sunny area here in the greenhouse for them to really get the roots established before they're offered for sale. Okay? Enjoy your Sansevierias. Have a snake den. I have over 100 varieties of them. Absolutely love them. So many different sizes and shapes and colors. Please check out your Sansevierias. And hey, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and like our channel on YouTube. Okay? Peace out. Thank you.